Everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and today I'm speaking with the publisher of Silver Phoenix Entertainment, the charismatic and larger-than-life Charles D Moissant. Hello, Charles. How are you, sir?
Very good. And how are you, superhero?
I'm doing all right. Apparently, I'm a superhero now. Wow.
Captain Logan?
That's good.
Beard and have claws come out, or you have whiskers that actually do the cutting up. Could you imagine if your beard was made of adamantium, so you swing around and give people like razor stubble slicing? So you gotta like rub your face on a wall until it comes open, and you can stick your head through it.
See, that would be the most bizarre superpower ever. But then it occurs to me, maybe rather useful.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Charles, we're gonna go ahead and get right into it, and we're gonna chat about Charles's publishing company and the comics that they're working on and all that kind of stuff. The first thing I want to ask you is how you got. Well, actually, before we talk about Silver Phoenix, let's talk about where you started in the comics industry in the first place. Stuff you've worked on before you started your own underground comics company, and then we'll get into how that started. Go ahead.
Okay, well, years ago, I tried to raise funding for an animated series, or actually an animated film. I bought a license for Space 1899, the old steampunk game. Do you remember that from years ago?
I don't. I'm not aware of that.
Of course not. You're not a nerd. What's wrong with you?
No, I'm a geek.
This is embarrassing. I'm and I was getting close to raising, or not close, but I was working to get in line to raise a $5.2 million to do an animated movie, which back in the 80s, late 80s, like 88, 89, was affordable. You could do that. You know, I had connections through Kennedy Studios to go to Korea to get some of the work done there. Wow. And so on and so forth. But then the president at the time, and I won't say who, the people are smart enough to research who was president back then, and this was after Reagan and after Bush, changed the laws so that, let's say you were a multimillionaire and you would put in $2 million into my film or to any film. The IRS didn't consider you making, let's say, $5 million for that year. Let's say you put in $2 million into a movie. They would consider that you made $2 million for that year, and then you'd be in a different tax bracket, or tax-wise it would work differently. And then obviously when the return came back, then you'd be able to funnel it somewhere else, or, you know, who knows what. And it really, in my opinion, hurt the independent movie industry dramatically. You had to figure out new routes. And a friend of mine advised me to you know, why spend $5 million on a movie? Make a comic book. And so I made my first comic book called Kremin, Kremin, under the banner of Gray Entertainment, because Gray were beyond black and white. So did that for a little bit, started to get some traction, and then my brother passed, unfortunately, and that either spend the money on the comic book or spend it on his funeral, and we spent it on the funeral. And then some other problems happened with distribution, and then I pulled out of the industry until 2005. Katrina is like starting to flip around. I arrived home and I'm like, hey, let me go through Omaha, Nebraska. Now, back in '83, which is even before I published comic books, and this was when I did a little work at Kennedy Studios that worked on She-Ra and a whole bunch of other cartoons from back then, and I did some inking and painting on She-Ra.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah, so I got a little She-Ra in me. I worked at a haunted house called Mystery Manor back in '83. And, you know, did a great job scaring, played a mad scientist, used a horrible German accent. I was Dr. Frickenfrack. And I was such a genius, I could put a brain of moose onto a flea, and it would still be alive. You know, that's what type of idiot mad scientist I was. And I had a fake meat cleaver and stuff. It was, you know, it was a lot of fun. Well, we ended up on cable news, things like that, and my friend's haunted house started to get a lot more notoriety at the time, too. And then I disappeared from Omaha and life, and that's a whole different story when I almost landed a job doing voiceover, but then the stock market crashed, and then the funding for that project dried up, so I ended up back in Chicago. Well, flash forward back to 2005, and I'm like, hey, let's go through Omaha, Nebraska. And then I'm driving, and it's like, you know, it might be fun to see if Mystery Man is still around. And there's a giant billboard. saying, I'm back with a giant, insane killer clown, Bobo the Clown. So I find Mystery Manor. I'm with my friend who worked for the director of the Oprah show at the time. Sean was his name. And we go, into Mystery Manor, and then the owner, Wayne Sealer, looks at me. Now, this is 20 years later. Actually, 22 years later. He just looks at me, stands up, and says, Charles, is that you? We still have your lab coat. And my purple lab coat was still in a sacred spot in the costume room. And apparently whatever I did or my antics just still resonated in Omaha, Nebraska 20 years later.
Wow.
Wayne Sealy. So he begged me to come back, and I was going through divorce at the time, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. It was great fun. I changed the mad scientist from the crazy frickin' frack to Dr. Charles Wayne Zarvin III or Charles Wayne Zarvin III. Sometimes I flipped it back and forth. This mad scientist in the haunted house tries to rescue you, but he fails.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So you come into my lab. It's a bad teleportation. I scan you to make sure that your DNA is not coated with cosmoline. And if you are the subject, I actually separate you from the group and have you go ahead of everybody. And so it gets...
Yeah. That's nuts.
And then, as the person's leaving, I beg them not to get upset, because if your DNA is coated with cosmoline, you have hyper-psionic abilities to where you can destroy the entire town of Omaha. And then there's a secret button I pressed where the bridge would shake, steam would burst out, everything starts, quote, falling apart. So, in essence, the person who's leaving is psychically destroying my lab. And that's, quote, where everybody dies, and I, demand to go. Now, they're jettisoned down a 3-story slide ahead of everybody. And they might end up in either the clown butcher shop or in the creepy zombie ambulance.
Wow. Now, this is a different haunted house than Zombie Annihilation, right?
Correct.
And do you still have Zombie Annihilation? Now, Charles, a couple years ago, was talking about how he owns his own haunted house. Do you still have that?
I actually burned it to the ground.
Did you really?
Yes.
Wow. Was that part of the act, or did you just feel like it, or...?
No, I got together with the mayor and the fire department. We burned it down to the ground. You can see the photos on Facebook.
Did you really?
Yeah, blood red serious.
Why?
It was funny. I wanted to cook marshmallows.
Oh, well, the problem is what you do that, and it might be fun that one evening, but then how do you still have a haunted house after that?
Well, you build a new one.
Oh, did you build a new one?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just got to get sponsors for that.
Okay.
No, to get back to the subject.
Yeah.
Wayne and I talked about doing a comic book about Mystery Manor.
Okay.
So I did a 6 issues series, and I did it similar to a cross between EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt, anthology stories, and one main story that was going through. And I sold over 20,000 of issue 1.
Wow. Well done, sir.
Over 15,000 of each other unit after that. So, pretty neat. Diamond didn't do as well. They're a great company to work with, but I didn't have the proper budget to help to utilize their resources properly.
Okay.
Because the thing I like about Diamond is they could call the comic book retailer saying, "Hey, here's a new book. Check it out." They have mailer campaigns. They got internet blasts. Really nice things if you can afford it. And from my calculation, if you're going to make about $50,000, you need about $20,000 to $30,000 to spend on advertising.
Wow, so that much.
That's just my research, and I could be wrong, but Diamond has been very good to me and very supportive, even though my units have been very low. So I'm very, very proud to work with them. But to get back to the subject, so Mystery Manor was my first book.
Okay.
And then different owners, or the son, took over the haunted house, and then the book kind of ran itself, story to its end. So it basically stayed at 6 issues. I then did a got a license from the great Bill Fawcett and Jody Lee Nye and Robert Asper. And I did Myth Told Tales, which was a blast. What was amazing was, and this is another side story, Dragon Con was actually, when I told you my brother died and everything, Dragon Con was a convention that broke me. Discovered a girlfriend I had was defiled and murdered. Had a major falling out with a good friend of mine, and I financially lost my shirt. You know, just it was just horrible. And I'm like, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I'm done with comics. I'm done with everything.
Wow.
So I did the Mystery Manor book, and then Bill Fawcett, who's a director at Dragon Con, convinced me to do Dragon Con, and I was terrified. I was, oh my God, because of all the horror that happened.
Yeah.
So, okay, I agreed to do it, and I fear Dragon Con, but I also respect it, because it can also make you. So, I ended up going, and when I did Dragon Con, I didn't have a table, and Bernie Wrightson was kind enough to share a corner of his table with me. So I actually was at Bernie Wrightson's booth when the crash happened. Now, 06 or 07, or was it 08? Okay, well, the year that I did Myth Told Tales, I go to Dragon Con, and I get there, and they don't have a table for me. So it's like, same thing, just like last time. And I'm sweating. You know, I'm almost full of terror. Then a table says, "Hey, we could share a corner of the booth." I'm like, "Oh boy, I heard this before." So I go to the coffee shop of horrors, and so I share their booth, and things start going really well. And I came there with no money, and I sold out of all my product in under 3 hours.
That's amazing.
Everything was gone, so I had nothing left to do except draw caricatures and wander around the convention. I got a phone call from a friend of mine. They'd caught and incarcerated the perp that murdered the girlfriend.
That's amazing.
And that friend who I had the falling out with, we made up, and we're buddies again now.
That is a fascinating story, Trey, and all the second time you went to Dragon Con.
Yes, it was like...
It's incredible.
It forgave me. It said, "Now we will accept full. The dragon has forgiven me for whatever reason." But again, did really well, and things were starting to gain steam. Then, of course, tragedy hits again. My poor mother's a victim of a Ponzi scheme, and she loses $110,000, which costs us $250,000 in damages, and that throws us behind.
Oh,
in fact,
goodness.
I'm doing a comic book about that.
Really?
Under my financial, I'm starting to develop different directions of it. I'm like doing the opposite of EC. I'm doing horror, but I've been making very good money doing educational.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I'm a backwards EC. Maybe I should be CE or something.
Well, Charles, you just blew through a number of things I wanted to ask you about, and one of them is how. One of them is how important these days, especially for independent comic book making, are conventions compared to the internet. Do you make more at shows than you do any other place?
Yes. What I've been doing with the Haunted House comic books is I make it for and about the haunted house, and then after people have gone through the boo scares and whatever, at the end of the house, boom, there's my book to buy. So I got a built-in audience who wants to keep going on the story. That's how I was able to move about 20,000 units of the Mystery Manor. About 12,000 units. The rest have been conventions. Diamond only had moved about, I'd say, 1,000 units.
And did those just go to some random comic shops? Was that like pre-orders or not pre-orders, but people like asking for them, or?
Yeah, well, I would get into previews, okay. And then I would go across the country, and somebody would order it. So one place I might just send 15 books, another place a couple hundred books. But You know, again, if I had the right resources, then I would be able to use Diamond, utilize Diamond properly, and then we'd become a symbiotic machine. So, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting business. But conventions have been really the way to go, and hooking up with the right type of people helped too. One of the things that, if you've noticed at a lot of conventions, Philo Barnhart, a former Disney animator, has been with me. And it's not, you know, before I would call up a convention and say, hey, I'm Charles D Moissant, you know, XYZ, this is who I am, this is what I do. And they'd say, oh, tables are $400. Okay. All right. You know, scrabble to get the money together. You know, the hotel, fuel, everything, you know, boom, I just spent $1,000 and I might make $500 or $200 or $40 or whatever. You know, but at least I'm still out there. Now, when I call up and say, hey, I'm Charles D Moissant, XYZ, blah, 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 this is the cost of the table. Oh, well, what if I brought Philo Barnhart, who helped to design Ariel with Little Mermaid, worked on Secret of Nim, and worked on all these things, and all of a sudden, sir, what can we do for you? We can offer you a table, sir. We can cover your travel expenses. We can offer you food, and we can provide your hotel. And is there an appearance fee?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I say, well, the deal is I come with them.
Yeah.
So that's been helping, and you know, his lines are flooded, and we just have a fun at the convention. I'll be on roller skates, and they'll be drawing away, and we become this crazy tag team of fun.
Yeah, I've seen you on video. You're wild at those shows. How many are you doing a year right now in general?
Between 12 to 24.
That's great. And mostly local, or do you fly quite a bit?
Oh, no, we drive everywhere.
Great. Yeah. I gotta ask you, have you been to Planet Comic Con in Kansas City yet?
Negative. I'd like to go.
You should do that show. We're growing more and more all the time. I think we hit somewhere between 55 and 65,000 in attendance this year. It was really good. Yeah. Now, are you seeing mostly repeat people that like your stuff already, or are you selling a lot of stuff to folks that have never heard of you?
A mixture of both.
Good.
Now, it's now getting to the point to where I am now the I think I've heard of, or I've heard of, instead of I've never seen this before, which helps a lot, you know, with building the brand and the things like that. And you know, there's been fluctuating popularity with the different titles. Zombie Annihilation, I moved over 10,000 of them. Issue 1. Issue 2, I'm very close to the 5,000 mark.
Wow. Great.
Which I'm excited about. And those have been, that has not been an official print run, those have been digitally printed. But what's been really doing well have been the Myth Told Tales #2, even though it's been only a black and white version, and the color version is nearly done. And then I need to raise some Kickstarter funds to help with the rest of it. And also roller derby drama, where all derby girls have superpowers. And I sell out consistently at every show I've been doing lately.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm doing my books on ground worm paper or ground wood paper, so that they're like 70 books, 60 books. They feel like them.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
And I'm using flatting, so the color's horrible.
That's it, but it gives it that old world kind of feel, and it's all flashback, and yeah, that's awesome.
Show you some colors. Hold on.
Sure.
So, wait, where was I? I forgot. Oh yeah, I was telling you about roller derby drama. In the universe of roller derby drama, all derby girls have superpowers, and it stems from their derby names. So, in that universe, and I'm going to do an origin story. The moment a derby girl chooses her derby name, some cosmic event happens. It could be magic, could be a space bowl, it could be hyper science. Who knows what? What it is, what the secrets of the derby gods are. You know, those of the dervish faith. But the girl that you know, powers will just spontaneously start. Oh, yeah, it's kind of spooky out here. And we'll go from there. This way you can see the books. See the roller derby drama. Zombie Annihilation, and then the Anime Central is a lot of fun. I used to do their printing for them. And they got too big to keep up with this demand and supply. Oh, Final Barnhart did this cover and it was banned from a magazine. That's true, it was. By the way, that cat's really fat. He's fat. There we go. We're turning it this way.
So Charles, you like to make comics about you seem to have you seem to have the same mentality that I do, which is write what you know. So are you going to make a comic book about your fat cat?
Yes.
You should. You should.
But I won't call it Fat Freddy's cat. No, that's Ferrari. That's a black cat. She's creepy. With the educational books, my goal is to do very high volume numbers with them. The subject matters are MedCom comics. With the MedCom comics, those will talk about things with health and wellness. For example, choices. That story is about two obese children making different choice and life paths. One chooses to eat healthy, exercise, limit caloric intake, and the caloric intake that they do have is of high nutritional value. The second child continues on his normal path, overeating, not exercising, and his obesity continues while the other child's obesity ends, and it ends up with the two still friends but as adults, and one suffers their first heart attack, and the other, of course, still is healthy. And within it, I throw in some family dynamics. For example, the one child, their family agrees, let's try to lose a little weight. Yeah, let's do it together. This will be fun. The other child's family, when he suggests it, the father insults the child. How dare he, you're going to eat everything on that plate. Your mother works hard. You're a man. This is what you do.
Yeah.
So it also shows a little bit of the social commentary on eating disorders can be passed on not only by the commercial foods and what's out there, but by old family values that might be archaic nowadays. Because if you're working on the farm, if you're working a lot of manual labor, you need those big breakfasts for the fuel. But if let's say you're sitting around playing video games, and that's how the story starts out. These two children have eaten each over 20,000 calories within a 2-hour period. They're eating pizza, and they're sitting around playing video games at 4 p.m. And they could be outside running around and stuff, and instead they're just, whatever. The other educational line I'd like to do is financial literacy. And part of my goal with my books, which I hope to make for free, is to impart knowledge on how to challenge your checkbook, how to not think of the ATM as a credit card, but as money that has a limited amount of use. What is a loan? What do you need to prepare for a loan? How is a car loan different than a house loan, different than an educational loan? So on and so forth. So there's a series of books that I'd like to do there. The third branch is public service. What do they do? What is an alderman? What do they do?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
What does the mayor do?
Yeah, people don't know that.
Right. I mean, I don't know what an alderman does. And as you research, this can really help also people with the knowledge of what they do. They can realize, okay, if I talk to my alderman, instead of having 7 nail shops in the same 2-block radius, perhaps let's work to get in a barber, a clothing store, a restaurant, a few other, a mom and pop shop, a few other. I mean, it's just interesting, the infrastructure of how that works.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. And we'll see. My goal with the educational books, like I said, is to give them away for free by getting sponsorship, ads. One of the things I did with Zombie Annihilation, and also this other book that I'm going to, I can't remember how to do it, but I want to. Oh, look at that. Ads. That's ads in the book. So instead of this costing me a big wad of cash to print, it was inexpensive. Oh, there it is. Inexpensive enough that, see there.
Oh, yeah, $1.50.
Isn't that great? Yeah, it's just.
And you published that in what year?
2 years ago.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's in color.
Yeah. And here's the scary
That's astounding.
part. It's going to make terrified.
That looks good.
In the world.
That looks great. That's very authentic early pulp. I like it.
Right, Chris Wisnia. That's the other thing too is I've been able to work with some of the greats in the industry. Aaron Bellman actually has done a really nice pinup for me that I might use as a cover for one of my horror titles. This book is an educational book. I gave away 10,000 units for free, and I was at a decent profit.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's a brief history of Oak Park. We talk about horrible stuff. That was drawn by Cynthia Martin. Have you heard of her?
Yeah.
Okay. Yay. Look at that. What is that about?
And that's Oak Park, Illinois, yeah?
Yeah. I do want to talk about a fun new book I'm doing also.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Danny and Dana in Dino World.
You got to have that alliteration when you do dinosaur things.
DDDW. Yeah. My artist wants me to change it to Primordial Rising, but this is going to be my first overt splatter book.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine Mars Attacks Violence. And basically, it's a story about a young African-American girl who's 18, but when she was 13 was thrust back 65 million years ago. She gets her arm bit off by a dinosaur, but she learns how to use magic. You also have Danny, who's a modern military refueling pilot. She also ends up back there. And the two women work together to stop the Atlanteans from raping the world of resources, which is magic. In the beginning, God did create the planet of the Earth. However, there's a residue left behind. That residue is magic. Now, we do know magic today, but magic decays. We know it as radiation.
Oh, that's neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great, Charles. I love that. But you're gonna make it a really violent title.
Yeah. Like if arm gets bit off, it's over splatter, type stuff. Just ridiculous. When the
super exaggerated.
Do their stuff, it's horrible. Smoldering bodies. We're gonna have lizard men, lizard people. We're gonna have the Atlanteans. We're gonna have jinn. You know what jinns are? Like evil genies.
Oh, okay.
Messing up the fact. And then the dinosaurs are the worst of the bunch. The dinosaurs, turns out, they're as smart as we are, if not smarter. So let's say one gets a hold of you, and being human, they've never tasted anything like you. They really like the way you taste. Well, we both know that from a major wound that would be caused by a dinosaur eating your arm off or your leg off, you're going to die. You're going to bleed out. Turns out they got a special salve that they can spit on you to heal the wound. They'll let you go to hunt you another day.
That's neat. So when are you going to launch that book?
Hopefully 6 months. I'm working with one of my interns from Myad College in Milwaukee, and that's another thing I've been doing is trying to work with interns. Another interesting statistic is Silver Phoenix is female-owned. It's owned by my mom, who's 80. So she runs the books and makes sure that all that stuff is done. I do the crazy creative stuff.
Oh, that's neat.
Crazy. But about 70% of the workforce with Silver Phoenix are either minority or female, which is a lot different than the normal statistics in the comic world.
Right.
So, fun stuff.
That's great. Well, Charles, I'm going to ask you a couple other things. First of all, because here's some fun stuff. First of all, I am a huge supporter of independent comic book stores. Where is your favorite comic book store?
It's a toss-up between Rick's One Stop Comics at 111 South Ridgeland Avenue in Oak Park, Illinois. That guy is a great old Sicilian, over 1 million units. It's dusty, it's creepy, it looks like it's going to collapse on you, but it's a lot of fun. And then another place called First Aid Comics. They seem to use a graham cracker model, but they're on 55th near Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. A lot of fun. They dress up like mad scientists, so I feel at home. Yeah, so it's some cool stuff.
I always like to take the opportunity to plug really good stores, so thanks for that. And also, if you had to pick the the one single creator, artist or writer that has had the greatest influence on your personal work, who would it be?
I would say it would unfortunately be several. Yeah. My early influence was Peter Max when I was in grade school, but also Starstruck. Starstruck is what changed my career path. Years ago, when I'm in high school, and this is also a Kickstarter story, I saw some of the characters from Starstruck, and I love it. And what do young high school kids do? They try to imitate and they try to draw to their best ability what they see. So I tried to draw Erotic Ann, the android, with a little salute and weird helmet and everything else. My sketchbook disappeared. Now I assumed I'd lost it like a chimp, like, I'm Yaz with the chimp, I lost my book. But I saw my work in a kid's locker. I saw Erotic Ann in a kid's locker, and I asked him, where did you get that? The kid looked terrified, and he said, I bought it from this guy for $5. And that made me think, oh my God, somebody bought my art.
That's amazing.
And instead of going the realm of science and physics, which I was going down that path, I switched gears and went into art.
Wow.
And, it was late bloomer, and then John Lennon passed, and then I was re-inspired with the Peter Max / I forgot the guy who did the Yellow Submarine. It's not Peter Max who did Yellow Submarine, it's a different guy. And what I've really been enjoying is Kickstarter, because, here you could get people who actually support it and not, wonder, look in the sandbox, for like quarters and dimes, so you could try to just get half a gallon of gas to get somewhere.
And what are you kickstarting right now, Charles?
My next one is going to be a relaunch of Myth Told Tales, #2, by Robert Aspen Jordan and I, and the artwork was done by Philip Moy, and colorist done by Void Experiment. So there's a whole group of us working together, and there are other names that I'm forgetting right now. It's like a cheese whiz brain. I do want to do another one for Zombie Annihilation #3, because I now have 4 more issues written. Danny and Dana in Dino World. Would love to raise funding for that. And more importantly, I'd really like to get funding for the health and wellness comics. But that I'd like to get serious sponsorship, because I'd like to do 1 million units.
And are you hoping to get those into schools and libraries and those sorts of places, or
all over? Yeah. I mean, and with that, I need at least 170,000 to do 1 million units, as well as pay the artists and everything, and pay for getting them shipped properly. And they can go to schools, they can go to Boys and Girls Clubs of America, they can even go to the comic book shops.
Sure.
And instead of waiting once a year to get something for free, every month you get something free from Silver Phoenix.
Yeah.
And it's just smarter. But maybe get the hard copy into depressed areas around the country where they don't have internet or they don't have easy access to it.
Yeah. And
a PDF or a digital version for those of us who are fortunate to have internet.
Yeah.
So
that sounds like a really good cause, Charles. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So are you? So all of those, are they all narrative, or they're not PSA-ish, right? Like they're no. You're telling stories with kind of a message at the core of them.
Yeah.
That's great.
One of my rules I do for the horror books is, unless if you're the victim, if you're good, you will win in the end, most likely. If you're not good, you'll usually lose, unless if it's time to happen.
So you have an optimism rule even in your horror comics. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, this is one of my favorite panels in the last book. Is you got. Let me just say like this. You roll the comic just like you should. Just read it. Beat it up. All just like that.
That's
see
great.
What he says here?
I hope these space guns work. That's great. I pray my theories are correct. This is fun, Charles.
And look what the fireman says.
Fire!
So they're firing,
Oh, the survivors fare true. Oh, fire true. They fire true.
Right. You know, just
Yeah, that's great.
you know, and I like to play with the violence. So you know, you see them all shooting, and of course, next issue, you know, how are things? Oh well, they you know, did a pretty good job firing, but unfortunately, everything around them is on fire. So you know, things are getting worse. We gotta escape. You know. And
that art is really fun.
Oh yeah,
that is so throwback, man.
You know, and you heard about the Chicago mayor and the teachers hate him.
Yeah.
So this might be the closest I get to a PSA. All right, let me see. Ow! Hold on, let me see this right. Hold it over. I'll sell this to somebody.
Ma'am, this might be our last stand. No, the zombie teachers just ate the Chicago mayor. It's not PSA, that's political comment, that's political satire.
Oh, that is? You know?
I would consider that political satire.
Yeah.
That's fun. Charles, I want to make this a show where I just talk to people that show me their comic panels and I just read them dramatically.
It's cool, read this one.
Horrific, shambling undead enter, blocking the only way out.
Yeah. And then actually the last two parts where bodies stick together, but you know, Dr. Zarvin is willing to sacrifice himself. You know, he's going to stay behind, but somebody else activates the machine to teleport them away. You know, and he thinks he's going to be by himself, but
none of us would have survived this long, playing every man for himself. Oh, yeah. Wow. They got a bit of a teamwork message going on there.
Right. You know, so, you know, that's some of the cheese balls.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That is old school comic melodrama.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we
you are not taking yourself too seriously. But that's not. But that's not to say that it's not about anything either. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. You know.
Well, thanks for showing me some of your stuff, Charles. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, folks, thanks so much for watching or listening. We are going to bid you adieu. But, Charles, I want to have you back sometime and chat with you about some stuff.
You're fun.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, you are too. And everybody make sure and check out Silver Phoenix.
You paid me a quarter for the interview.
That looked like a fake quarter. Maybe it's just the way the light hit it.
Oh, you're used to fake.
Was that a fake quarter?
No.
Oh, it's not. No, it's the way the light. I don't know. I don't know why. There's the way the light hit it. I can't do that. I can't do that.
These boxes are from Germany. No.
Yeah.
Beyonce has them, and now they're super wealthy. I've had them since the 80s. So yeah, this is time for me to go.
Thanks, Charles. We'll see you later. Bye.